Now, in simple terms, the VFX graph is basically Unity's new particle system. A particle, also in simple terms, is usually a small 2D graphic effect used to add visual flair to an action or effect, at least within the field of game development. Particle physics, however, may use a different definition. Particles are used in many things, from shooting a spell to weapon slashes and even heavy landing. To improve our particles from these awkward 2D circles to something more distinctive, we can open a visual effect by double-clicking it in the project window. It will pop out this VFX editing window, which we can either leave popped out, or we can dock it by drag and dropping. I'll dock mine here, next to the inspector. This editor window allows us to change the setting of a particular set of visual effects, from the image, speed, direction, color, velocity, lifetime, shape, and so much more. For example, this default system is spawning 16 particles per cycle in the spawn block. I can increase that value like this, 32, 100, or even 1000. But I have to ensure the maximum capacity in the initialized block is raised accordingly. Note the difference over here. Also, you'll note several blocks here. There are spawn, initialize, update, and output. The spawn block controls the spawn setting, including timing and rate of spawning. The initialize block controls start values for when the particle is first spawned. The update block allows for changing values every time the particle updates, and the output block determines some of the final settings, such as which direction the particle should face, should it be billboarded, which means always facing the camera. You can change the particle image, and you can control whether the color should shift over the lifetime of the particle. Let's get started making this look like fire. Now, I'm not really one for build-up, so attached to this lecture, courtesy of Unity, you can find a link to a fire sprite sheet. Download and drag that into your project window to continue. Okay, so with your sprite sheet in your assets or project folder, you want to drag the texture onto the main texture slot of the output block. So drag this right here. The main texture is responsible for the default look of your particle. However, right now it's displaying the entire sprite sheet rather than a single flame or a quickly shifting animation, which is our goal here. To get it to display just a single flame, let's go over here and set the UV mode to Flipbook or Flipbook Blend. And let's set the Flipbook size to match the number of rows in the image. I count, in the actual texture itself, 8 on the x-axis and 4 on the y-axis. So let's go 8 and 4. Now, it displays individual fire sprites, one per particle. Better. However, we still have to fix two things: the dark background and the lack of animation. To fix the dark background, we need to change the blending mode from alpha to additive. From alpha to additive. Which basically suggests that instead of blending the particle according to its transparency value, we draw the visible colors atop other colors in the scene, additively. These will remove the background. Excellent. Next, with these settings established to play the full animation, we need to add a Flipbook Player to the update block. Remember the update block. Now press the space bar and type in Flipbook, enter, and it will add that, and voila. Although we're not quite done. We can play around with the specific settings for controlling timing and speed. But in general, 8 on the x-axis times 4 on the y-axis is 32, which means setting this number to 32 will play the entire animation at least once before the particle vanishes, though we may want a slower flame. As the artist here, that's up to your discretion. Play around with it. Figure out what looks best for your goal. I think I'll go with 16 for now. Next, we'll refine the effect. Fire's main particle usually stays in the same zone, rather than floating upwards. So let's tweak some settings to enhance its verisimilitude, its similarity to the real thing. To tweak this, let's just go here and set the y-axis to 0. The set velocity random node basically allows you to add a random amount of velocity between two values or vectors to the particle when you first spawn it. Do you see how each flame goes out in a random direction? That's because it's drawing from this range of numbers to this range of numbers, and it generates a random value in between per particle. Next, what we'd like to do is get the flame to drop in world space rather than local. Right now, it's in local space, which means the particles move along with the game object. World space would mean that when the particles drop, they're actually left behind or in the wake of the game object. To change this effect to world space, let's go to the initialize block over here and toggle world. Click over here, press the spacebar, set, position, down, pick this one, and then from here, we need a few other things. First off, we need a vector 3, which will produce a 0, 0, 0 vector, and then we want to change the space from local to world. Right now, this L right here denotes that this vector, the 0 vector, is in local space. So when we change it to world space using this node and output it, it will determine where the fire is. And so now, magically, oops, wrong item. It will leave fire in its wake as we move it.
Hi, congrats on finishing another episode. The link should be in the description below. And if you enjoyed the content, please remember to like, share, and/or subscribe. Thank you. Happy learning.